Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Dylan McVeigh from Universal Robots, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. We'll leave time at the end for a live Q&A session, so feel free to submit your questions at any point using the question function to the right of your screen. You can also use the chat function for comments during the webinar. And with that, I'll hand things over to my colleague, Tommy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tommy Alexopoulos with Teardown Robotics. I am in charge of our integration network in the Western US. And today I am joined by our good friend, Josh Pauley from Vectis Automation. Josh?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Josh Pauley. I'm one of the co-owners and co-founders of Vectis Automation. We'll talk a little bit more about Vectis as we get going, but just wonderful to be here with everyone today, and want to say thanks for taking the time. And we hope to impart some of the observations that we've seen in our thousands of customer facility visits on what works well for automation and what causes automation to collect dust. So that's our goal today. So nice to be here with everyone.
All right. Like Josh said, our goal today is really to equip everyone who's here with all of the tools that we think are important in evaluating automation solutions, with how many different automated welding suppliers there are in the world, both from traditional robot companies to different collaborative robot companies across the entire world. It's become a little bit overwhelming, the amount of choices that are out there for fabricators. And what we've done today is compiled a list of questions that we think are super important when you're evaluating who you trust your business with. It's a list that's been compiled over, like Josh said, thousands of site visits, a lot of collaboration between both us at Universal Robots and the team at Vectis Automation. And we are really excited to talk about it today. Contrary to popular belief, when automation is done right, it benefits both manufacturers and employees. We've seen here, you can just see a boatload of customer testimonials from Vectis customers who have installed systems, and they really are embraced by not only the manufacturing facilities, but the people who are using the systems every day. So before we jump into who Vectis is, a little introduction on Teardown Robotics. So we are Teardown Robotics. We have both Universal Robots and MIR, Mobile Industrial Robots. So on the left, you can see our entire product offering, ranging from 3 kilograms all the way up to 35 kilograms payload capacities. And then on the right, we have our entire mobile robot platform, ranging from 250 kilogram deck loaders all the way up to 1,350 kilogram deck loaders, as well as pallet jack and mobile cobots. Today we're going to be focusing on the left side of the screen, but just to give you guys a picture of who Teardown Robotics is as a whole. So these are just some things that we find that are driving automation. Safety is one of the most critical things, and that's where collaborative robots have really given the edge to a lot of manufacturers. We have designed our robot platform to be inherently safe out of the box, but that allows for other partners to really take advantage of that and deploy safe solutions across the world. And specifically when you're looking at the welding world, one of the biggest driving factors in it is an aging workforce. There are going to be boatload of welders retiring over the next 15, 20 years. And this is a very powerful tool to help ease into that and really scale up the younger generation. Economic factors that are driving automation is rising labor costs. Everyone knows how expensive it is right now. And with rising labor costs means it is much more painful every time you lose labor. And it is allowing automated welding solutions are allowing for manufacturers to hang on to labor because it takes away some of the dull, dirty, dangerous work. Reshoring is another thing that, especially the past 18 months or so, there's been a huge emphasis on reshoring here in the United States. Automation is one of the key differentiators or key ways that we can help reshore manufacturing here to the United States. What is a cobot? I've said it multiple times. A cobot is a collaborative robot. It is, when people think of cobot, they think primarily of a power and force limiting robot, which, as you can see in the bottom right here, is a robot that knows when it runs into somebody, which allows for automated work cells to be a lot smaller than they have been historically. So power and force limiting robot is one thing people think about when they're thinking about collaborative robots. The other thing is a really easy to use, intuitive interface. Historically, programming children robots has been very challenging. You need a robot programmer in order to do any program changes, new part programming. With the collaborative robots, a lot of times what we see is a much more intuitive interface. You don't need a robot programmer to program new parts or make modifications. You need this is really a tool for your welders to utilize. With the easier interface, the intuitive interface, it allows for small batch sizes to be a lot more digestible. So it's not taking you hours to set up parts, taking you a couple minutes to set up a new batch. So it allows you to automate a lot more parts rather than spending hours programming one new part. Some of the benefits to introducing cobots to your workspace. I mean, you can see them all on the screen in front of you. The number one goal is to safely increase productivity. And with that, you are improving improving your quality, you're going to increase your overall productivity, reduce your scrap rate. You are going to be eliminating the dull tasks to keep your skilled laborers doing things that are more difficult to automate, right? You want to get the mundane stuff out of the way. You're trying to keep your environment as safe as possible. You're reducing repetitive stresses on any of your operators. You're giving them a fun new tool to utilize that's making their life that much more entertaining. And you can also do all of this in a smaller footprint, which allows you to be more flexible with how you guys are going to be utilizing your overall factory footprint. I know we've talked a lot about welding today. Collaborative robots can be used in pretty much every manufacturing process and a lot of different industries outside of metal and fabrication. We have been used in food and beverage facilities for palletizing and depalletizing, electronics facilities for screw driving and dispensing, various pick and place, put a camera on the end of the robot to do QA, QC. Really anywhere that you have repetitive labor is a place that we can look to automate and help move that labor somewhere else and really try to maximize the efficiency of your workforce. So we've talked a lot about the robots so far. Robots are pretty useless without trusted integrators. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Josh to tell everyone about Vectis Automation.
Awesome. Thanks, Tommy. And thanks for that introduction as well. Like Tommy said, like I shared before, my name's Josh, one of the co-owners, co-founders at Vectis. We founded Vectis in 2019 with the goal of making automation more accessible, more approachable, more affordable for the metal fabrication industry. Myself and many of my colleagues come from the traditional robot world. My first job was programming traditional robots and welding applications and managing those projects and being kind of under the hood, out installing them, deploying them, servicing them. And over that time, really realized, hey, how can we make this easier, right? And so right around the time that we wanted to make automation easier and more accessible was when cobots were really coming to prominence through UR. So Tommy may have mentioned it, but UR has been around for over 20 years, and cobots have been around for a long while. But they really started coming into prominence at 2018, 2019 realm. And so that's when we founded Vectis Automation to say, hey, let's turn these cobots into useful tools for the metal fabrication industry with welding and cutting. So we're the pioneer and still the market leader of cobot fabrication systems. Our team has centuries of experience in robotic welding and cutting, and we apply a lot of that application knowledge, really the kind of the good, bad, and ugly experience to make sure that our customers are taken care of and really just successful with automation. And we're driven by an ethos, the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. We're based in Loveland, Colorado, but we have systems all across North America. Around 800 of, actually 830, serial number 831 is going out today. And one of the things that makes us unique is that we're 100% focused on cobot welding and cutting, which allows us to be really, we're not distracted by other product lines. So, and as Tommy mentioned, as I'm sure many on the call are already feeling, really what's propelling, these solutions is the challenges that manufacturers face, right? Labor shortage, productivity gap. How can we do more with less? How do we relieve our team members of the boring, right? That's really what cobots are doing, is helping offload what we call the boring arc time to the cobot, so that your skilled welders, your skilled fabricators can focus on the work in the shop that really requires that human eye and that brain for adaptation. So how do we, let humans and machines work together in a collaborative nature to solve those tasks, the best that each can, right? So let's get into the meat of what we're here to talk about today. Some questions that we're arming you with to help, empower your success and hopefully avoid, dust collection or frustration. So again, like we've mentioned, these are built on listening to and visiting thousands of customers over the last many decades and seeing what has worked, not just ours, but others, and what has not worked, ours and others as well. So we hope that these are helpful to arm you to ask your partner, provider, some tough questions to make sure that we call it no surprises down the road, right? And so I'm going to start with kind of a framework, going to steal from Maslow, I guess, here, but really from these observations, distilling it down into a hierarchy of needs for automation success. And really what this is seeing, hey, all the places in my career that I've seen robots, cobots, whatever, automation of any type collecting dust versus when it's really doing well and cracking out parts and adding value to the business. And what's really interesting is I think it's so often the focus is on the product or the robot or, all those sorts of things. What's the pretty flashy software or whatnot. And don't get me wrong, that's important. But if there's one thing I can share with you to take away today is that robot success is driven by the people in your business and the people that you partner with. Robots make it easy. Cobots make it easier. But you need the people to drive the success, drive the solution. What parts are we going to weld or cut or fabricate on the system? How are we going to design the part? How are we going to do the jig? How are we going to do the workflow of the plant, right? There's so many things outside of just the robot or cobot itself that go into successful automation strategy at a given facility. And so the number one most important thing is the people in your facility. And then secondarily, the people that you choose to partner with to guide you and support you, your team through that, right? We call it, who is your cobot champion internally, right? Cobots are made, like Tommy mentioned, cobots are easier to program, quicker to program for smaller batches, but you still need that champion to decide what's going to be done with the cobot and who's going to teach the cobot to do that, right? So that number one foundation is the people, especially the internal champion. From there, you look at the process, right? What is the process for quality control? What is the process for looking at applications? And we'll talk about it a bit, but there are lots of weldments and applications out there that are a good fit for automation. And there are a lot of applications out there that are poor fit for automation based on fit up, based on consistency, based on the material thickness. Is it galvanized versus carbon? There's so many nuances that go into what is really, at the end of the day, what can be done by just setting a recipe and having a cobot do that versus what really needs the human eye and the human brain to adapt as that weld is occurring, right? And so processes around application evaluation and experience in application evaluation. And we'll talk about some of those core things there. And then finally, like I mentioned, yes, the product absolutely does matter, right? When you're looking at, hey, what cobot, what robot, what integrated system might you go with? Of course, the product matters and the features and the software and the price and those things. But I would say, in my experience, it's the cherry on top, right? It's the final key to success once the people in the process are really aligned and defined. So we're going to go into them. We're kind of break out these next, 10 sets of questions based on these kind of three pillars of automation success. So starting most with the people, right? And I say the number one big factor, and I'm preaching to the choir here, right? For everyone on the call, at the end of the day, it's, do I trust the person that I'm going to write this big check to, right? And we look for trust in character and trust in competence. And I think at the end of the day, do you trust that partner and especially your primary contact to be there through the entire journey, right? And I think when we hear of, experiences that have gone well in industry, experiences that have gone poorly across all equipment, is that provider focused enough to focus on my needs, right? Do they have enough capacity and focus to focus on my needs, or are they distracted by other product lines, right? How stable is their business line for the product that I'm looking at, right? I think it can be easy to think, there's some big company or something like that, but there's so many product lines there. Does the one that I'm looking at procuring from that provider get the amount of attention that it needs for you to have someone to help be your guide and empower your success, right? I think one of the couple of the biggest questions that I encourage you to ask your provider is not just what can it do, right? Everyone tells their highlight reel. We live in the era of social media, right? Everyone's website shows all great testimonials and, hey, everything's hunky-dory. But asking them, what in my shop can it not do, I think will tell you a lot about kind of that trustworthiness, right? If everything's, hunky-dory, 100% golden, that's usually just a bit detached from reality, right? And so in almost every shop that I've been in, there are poor applications for automation. And some, I break it down into, you've got application viability technically. Hey, is this weld possible? Is this gap condition in the cross section of the joint? Are those all viable? And then there's the economic side of it, right? It's not just can you, but should you automate it, right? And I think the right partners, the best partners, help you evaluate both of those items. And rarely have I been in a shop where everything in the shop is yay technical, yay economic, right? Usually there's things in the shop that's like, hey, it's technical, but man, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't do that economically. I'd keep manually welding that and focus the cobot towards parts X, Y, and Z, right? And so I find that to be a really valuable question to ask your potential partners is, hey, what should I not do with this automation system? The second set of questions is really on the track record. I think, again, preaching to the choir, everyone's worked with equipment and vendors before, and track record is such a key part of it, right? But I would encourage some keynotes here, right? Obviously, hey, do you have a good track record is important. But one thing I would encourage you to dive further on is, what is the track record specifically for the product or products that you are looking at, right? You see a lot of folks, we've seen it a lot. I mean, FabTech 2019, when Vectis unveiled in Chicago, we were really the only Cobot welding system, on the floor, right? And kind of got laughed at, right? Now you see one, I'm sure, again, to Tommy said, to what Tommy said, hey, it's tough to decide, right? There's so many options. It's kind of information overload, right? You go to FabTech now and there's a Cobot in every corner. And I think the reason that there's a Cobot on every corner of the trade shows is because it looks easy, right? Everybody sits in a room and goes, hey, what do we bring to FabTech this year? Oh, let's slap a Cobot on a table and say we do cobots, which is kind of the cool thing right now, right? And so, but really their focus of the business may be elsewhere, right? And so I would really encourage you to dive deep on, hey, you show that you do cobots, you've got this nice marketing literature, but how many of the Cobot welding system or the Cobot inspection system or any other equipment, right? How many of the specific equipment that I'm looking at purchasing do you actually have out there, right? And I think a really good analogy for this, right, is you look at Microsoft, great company, right? I'm on a Windows PC, right? Titan of industry, one might say. And, when I still remember it when they held a funeral for the iPhone. You see the picture of it there. I thought it was wild marketing, but they held a funeral for the iPhone when they came out with their Windows smartphone, right? And no one's got a Windows smartphone anymore, right? But a lot of folks have an iPhone, and so just kind of like, hey, you would expect the Microsoft brand to do well in anything, right? How could they not? But different sectors, different products, different customer needs are different, right? And I'm the first to say that Vectis is very focused on welding and plasma cutting intentionally. We say no to a lot every single week because applications are hard, right? We're not good at some other application. I can't think of one off the top of my head, right? I don't know the first thing about screw driving electrical assemblies, right? But I do understand that every application is difficult in its own right, and so really would encourage you to ask. That's the key of this. What I'm trying to get across here is ask your potential provider, what is their track record in the specific products or services that you're looking at from that vendor. And then, of course, from a people perspective, what is the experience? What does your journey look like as the customer if you choose to work with those people at your integrator partner, right? And so ask them, hey, if we submit the order, give you the big check, what does it look like? What does training look like, right? What does your track record and experience look like on shipping on time, right? What's your lead time? One of my favorite questions is, how many repeat customers do you have? I think that is, and again, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but it's a good reminder of that is the ultimate, in my mind, the ultimate assessment of the customer experience is when customers come back for number 2, number 3, number 37, number 63, right? Where they're choosing to come back and continue to work with you because the experience on the first or second or nth one was that good, right? So asking how many repeat customers do you have is a really great question. And again, how many repeat customers for the product or service that you're specifically looking at, right? It's so easy to say, oh, well, we sell a lot of PCs. Well, how many Windows smartphones were repeat customers, right? So helping kind of differentiate between different product lines, right? So then moving into, so that's some of the core, in my opinion, some of the foundational people questions, right? The partner that you choose, the trust and character and competence. Moving into the process pillar, the first thing that we recommend asking about is on robustness, right? Because at the end of the day, oh my God, I'm sure you all feel this. I feel this every day with all products, anything, right? There's so much information in social media and marketing and videos, and everything looks awesome. but you don't need something that looks awesome. You need something that's going to make parts on your floor, on a shop floor every day, right? And so, in our product philosophy and what I believe for automation and industrial machinery as a whole is it needs to be way more robust than it is cool, right? And so asking questions like, hey, what generation is your cobot specifically? Again, cobots are built differently internally. I didn't know that until I popped one apart, 7 or 8 years ago. I thought it looked like a shrunk down robot with some sensors on it. No, they are, when built correctly, they are built entirely differently inside to really allow for that force and torque sensing, that collaborative nature. But I didn't know that, right? And so, hey, what generation specifically is your cobot, right? Or what generation specifically is this solution that you're specifically looking at? What's the oldest running installation, right? What's the harshest environment that this specific system has been placed in, and how does it perform there, right? Good question is what tends to fail, right? I'm very wary, again, as a business owner looking at potential vendors that we work with, what tends to fail? Oh, nothing. Something always fails, right? So maybe it doesn't fail all that often, but there should be an answer to that question of, an honest technical answer to the, hey, what most commonly fails, right? And then if something does fail, what is the downtime recovery plan? What does the warranty look like? What does that experience look like? Is it pointing fingers, or do you help me figure it out, right? Because no product's perfect, no business, we're not perfect, our products aren't perfect, but what do you do? How do you react when something goes not to plan, right? So in that same vein, on kind of the service process, the support process, and really the process mindset of your potential partner, right? Who is servicing the cobot tools? And it can get, I call it the warm body fallacy, where it can be easy to say, oh, there's someone, with a logo on their shirt near me, right? But that isn't always the best individual to support the broad range of needs that most automation equipment needs, right? And so just being kind of mindful of that, hey, even in the vendor relationships that we choose for our products, I'm looking at, hey, who's the technical expert, whether they're remote or close, doesn't really matter. Who's that individual that we're going to call if we need something, right? And do I trust their character and their competence, right? Another key thing, it can be really easy to think of service just as like break, fix, or warranty. I'll be honest, that is the more rare service call that we get of something's broken, right? The most often support call, we get them every day, is, hey, I'd like to optimize my program, right? I want to take some air moves out. I want to speed it up. Hey, I want to take some spatter out of my weld. Hey, I want to try metal core wire. Or I want to do some vertical up with flux core, right? And it's more application-based questions, right? And so making sure that you have a partner that can support on the, in my opinion, and in our data, the much more common application questions, as well as the break fix stuff when that happens, right? Where are spare parts stocked, right? If I need something, can it be overnighted? What does that look like? And then do you have a right to repair, right? Can I perform my own service? We're seeing this trend, I think in other industries primarily is where I've mostly heard it. But this idea of like, hey, I can't repair anything on my own. I got to take it into the dealer, or I got to take it into somewhere else because it's a software or computer thing. And hey, how much can I repair on my own if I so choose, right? And just knowing what those, that differences look like, so you go in, fully aware, and again, to that no surprises goal. To the process on safety, right? You want your integrator partner to take safety seriously. Something off, a common phrase is, hey, everything's fine until it's not, right? And so you want someone that's thinking about the full gamut of safety concerns, to where you don't have that until it's not day or moment, right? And so asking them, hey, what are the actual safety measures built into the cobots? We break it down broadly. This is broad stroke. You have the kinetic hazards of the robot mechanism, and then you have some of the electromechanical hazards of the system, and then you have the application hazards, right? In our case, welding and plasma cutting. And so those are going to differ between applications, but How are they handling each of those broad categories of safety hazards, right? And those are all covered in the safety risk assessment, which is an A3 ISO document. Any integrator worth their salt will know what that is and have completed one for their systems that they're proposing to you. And so go ahead and ask for that, right? Go ahead and ask them to walk through it with you, right? A good integrator should be like, yeah, let's hop on a call and we'll go through it and share the hazards and how we're abating them and make sure that fits with your safety EHS methodology in your facility, right? And then if you want a good kind of barometer of, hey, do they take safety seriously? That is a key part of A3's certified robot integrator certification program. Is, hey, does this entity takes safety seriously? So you can look for that sticker as well. Typically, someone's going to be certified by A3 is worth their salt on the safety side, and a number of other sides as well. In fact, most of these things, these are questions that I'm offering here. So then finally getting to kind of the pinnacle, right? Kind of the final keys to success in the hierarchy of needs of the product itself, right? And again, I think so often the focus is on the product, and it can be so easy to be seduced by, X feature or Y price or, Z deal or whatnot, right? But, it was Benjamin Franklin, right? The bitterness of poor quality lasts for much longer than the sweetness of low price, right? And I've seen that be so true so many times. You forget what you paid for something 10 years ago, but you sure know if it's still working for you or not, right? So that's kind of where we talk about why the people and the process of the integrator that you choose to work with is so critical to the long-term success. Much more, maybe not much more, but kind of those are the foundation relative to the product, which is kind of that final key to success. So the seventh set of questions is really on future proofing, right? What does the portfolio and the growth look like, right? To what I mentioned earlier, like, hey, you go to a trade show and everyone's got a cobot on a base now in their booth. That's great, but can you grow into a variety of needs that you might have, right? What does that look like? Is it going to be a familiar interface each time, right? What's the product range and what is the future roadmap, right? And that future roadmap is going to get resources and attention based on the amount of focus that integrator partner has on the product that you're looking at, right? If, hey, this is where they're going all in, then you're going to get support and attention and maybe the product portfolio growth that you need. A lot of our portfolio has grown from listening to customers for the last 7 years on what they would like to see. Hey, we need some extended range. We need to be even more portable. We need to be able to lift and place it onto large parts, or hey, plasma cutting, right? So the amount of attention that they give their the business product line that you're looking at is how much attention that you're going to get for growth in the product that you may need in the future, right? On the software, this is a key to success, absolutely, right? I think this is one of the core enabling factors for cobots and just easier, more adoptable automation in general, right? It's been, how do you lower the learning curve and add tribal knowledge of how to program robots successfully into the software, right? That has been a critical success factor for cobots of all types and all applications, right? And so this is really key. And I would, here is my encouragement that I've kind of seen in the industry over the last few years is a lot of folks have developed the trade show demo software, right? Hey, it's going to look easy. We're going to be able to, weld a little T-plate in 30 seconds, and that's great, right? I call it kind of like the low floor, right? A lot of folks have gotten the low floor down, right? Because it's the easiest to start with. But what I hear from customers that have experienced other demos or whatnot, right, is that that's kind of it. It's a very tight floor and ceiling, right? They got the trade show demo down, but they haven't actually developed the under the hood, the back end stuff that's needed to tackle most applications. Multi-pass, changing weld parameters as you go, managing corners, managing transition angles into and out of corners, doing dwells for vertical ups, all these different nuances of welding and plasma cutting, right? How do you do projection cuts? How do you do bevels? How do you do circular interpolation around all these different things, right? And so really asking, hey, what does that ceiling look like, right? Everyone can do a a slick little demo on a trade show floor, but what does the ceiling look like for actual use in my shop? And sometimes the best way to look at that is, hey, bring me to another shop, right, where this is being used. Another key question asked, we've heard some heartache with this. Does it require an internet connection to work? And keyword there, require, right? There are some products on the market that require an internet connection to work properly. That works for some shops. That is a no-go for many others that either don't have great internet in the shop or are not allowed to have that because of security and data IT protocols, right? So being eyes wide open on that, we've heard some heartache when that has come up. Another big one is the updates, right? How stable is the software? How often do you do updates? Are updates free? Do I have some yearly subscription I have to pay, or do I have to pay for each one? And then key to that too, so there's a commercial side, but then there's also, I would say, the technical side of, do you auto update or do you let me choose when to update? I am not a fan. We don't do it at Vectis. I can't stand auto updates because if there's bugs and there in anything, heck, Apple has bugs, right? Software's hard, right? I get it. So bugs happen. If I'm running a shop, I want to be able to choose when I update so that if a bug comes up, you aren't interrupting my production, right? I don't want it to update on Sunday night. If I have a big production run I'm relying on 5 a.m. Monday morning, right? I want to be able to choose, hey, I'm going to do that 3 weeks from now when that run gets done. I'll update software when I choose, right? That's an important thing to ask of, and particularly the folks that have the internet, require the internet connection, tend to be auto updates as well. So just some things to ask to reduce your heartache down the road. On the product as well, I would say a big part of the product is the training, right? So what types of training do you provide? What will training cost? This happens, I swear this happens once a week. We get a call, hey, my champion, moved on, or they're in a different role now, or they're having to take some short-term, long-term leave, whatever it may be, right? How do we get someone trained up ASAP, right? And usually that someone is like a fill-in, like the foreman, or hey, I'm going to have my manufacturing engineer wear another hat. I'm going to have our laser operator wear another hat, right? And so how quickly and easily and affordably can you train another champion, right? This happens all the time. And so looking into that, right, is there self-guided options, videos, an online academy, or do I have to fly out to your facility, right? Or do you have to have a tech fly out to me? What does that look like? Scheduling always takes time. So being aware of the kind of the full gamut of options. Hey, do you have self-guided training in addition to in-person options? It's a good question to ask, just so you can be prepared for that. Maybe not eventuality, but commonality of champions moving on or needing to train another champion. Or hey, we see it a lot too. Hey, I want to train a second shift champion, right? How can you get them trained up in an affordable and quick and efficient way? And then finally, on the product side, the kind of pinnacle on the commercial details, right? I would ask, how can I reduce the risk of transacting with you, right? Do you have a money back guarantee, right? Do you have a rent to own program, right? Those are some things that we did to kind of reduce that risk and really put our money where our mouth is, right? On, did we do the right thing together with the customer on looking at the application, guiding to success, to where they're going to be successful with this for the long term, right? What's your lead time? What are the hidden? I love this one. What are the hidden costs or fees? And I hate this as a consumer, right? The surprise billing kind of stuff. We've heard some folks that got a tariff bill after, right? So ask them, hey, what is the landed cost at my facility, right? Is this all inclusive of tariffs, or is there going to be a surcharge? Am I going to get a bill from a customs broker, right? We do all our pricing landed, right? So just ask that. Make sure you know of that ahead of time. Where is this final product being built, and where is it being shipped from and to, right? Is shipping included? Do I need to add that? Is that LTL, or is that a dedicated truck? Do you have any recurring subscription costs, right? A lot of the solutions on the market do. The recurring revenues, all the rage, right? So, asking that, hey, will I be able to use this? And then along with this, I had a customer bring this up. Can you turn my ability to use this system off, right? Particularly with like internet connections or the subscriptions. Hey, if you don't pay your subscription, what happens? And they found that that solution, it did turn off, and that was not really a good fit for them, right? So is it discrete, right? Ours is all discrete. It's all, all the software is self-contained on the system, on the brain itself. We have no access to it remotely. We can't turn anything off if you don't pay your monthly bill or anything like that, right? So asking those questions just so you're familiar with what that looks like, right? Again, our goal is no surprises for you or for us or for your team. And then finally, what I wanted to leave with a few questions to ask yourself, and I think these are some of the key questions to ask internally to see, hey, are we ready to bring in some automation tools, right? The number one key to success, you heard me blab about it earlier, but the number one key to success that we see with any piece of equipment, our system or someone else's system or any other robot or cobot or, other equipment in the shop, press brake, laser, right, is will you assign and empower an internal champion? That is the number one key to success. Cobots and a lot of the equipment out there, they've made it easier for a champion to use this system, but easier has not negated the need for the person, right? It's actually, I would say, increased the need to have someone who really cares about the system and wants to see it succeed, right? Because as these cobots and other equipment become more like tool-like, they become less of this like abstract work cell like the traditional robots of decades prior, and they become more of a tool for the champion. That's what we see most commonly, right? And so the need for an internal champion is still critical. The technological threshold for that champion to thrive is what cobots and integrated cobot systems typically lower, right? You don't need to have a PhD in robot engineering programming to program the system, right? To teach the system. Most of our 800 plus customers, they have a welder, fabricator, grinder who learn to use the system by watching our videos and teaming up with some good welders and folks in their building, right? And that's what we want. We want it to be a tool for the welder fabricator, right? But that is key is assigning and empowering a champion rather than looking for an easy button. And we say our goal is to help teach our customers how to fish rather than give them a fish, right? Because again, in that tool-like mindset, right, where cobots are being used is on more flexible, smaller batches, right? It's not like automotive robots where it's, hey, we're going to build a line and we're going to run 1 million, automotive parts over the next 6 years, and it just does that, right? Most of our customers are changing what they do with the cobot every week, sometimes different hours in a day, sometimes every month, right? And so for that use case, you have to be taught how to fish rather than given a fish, right? And so that's a real goal, and that takes that internal champion. I always recommend for that internal champion, they don't need to be technically savvy on welding or robot programming. They need to care. They need to want to see the system cranking out parts. And if they've got that give a darn factor, they'll be able to teach themselves and learn from others how to use the system, both technically and both on the welding side and the programming side. So find someone who cares for that champion. Another key to success is good parts, right? The old adage, crap in, crap out, is still true with robots, cobots, AI, all that stuff, right? So creating consistent upstream processes. The coolest thing is that in the last 10, 20 years, upstream processes have gotten a lot better because there's more lasers in shops. There's more CNC brakes. There's slot and tab, CAD design. There's all these things, these enabling aspects upstream that are making better parts in the weld shop. And so it's kind of happened naturally. But that's a key aspect as well is making sure you've got good parts, or sometimes, what we'll often see as a phenomenon is once you get a system in, you start to kind of design for automation and make things more consistent, easier to teach in the weld shop and work with. And then I'll leave you the last one on generating buy-in with your fabrication team. I think we're seeing 20 years ago, there was a lot of resistance to robots and cobots. And there still is today, don't get me wrong, right? But I think more and more shops that I visit and that we interact with are seeing that, hey, this can be a tool to help offload the boring, right? And particularly with the shop floor, right? And so I think, but key is, communicating with your teammates to let them know, hey, this cobot is meant to be a tool to help you, right? Just like any other tool in the shop, right? Picking a champion that's going to embrace that mindset, right? One thing that I recommend to help generate that buy-in when you get it on your floor is do a crawl, walk, run approach, right? I've seen so many times in my career, particularly early on, when it was a lot of traditional robots is, hey, if you're going to spend $1 million on a traditional robot, we're going to try and bite off the biggest thing, right? And that biggest thing is oftentimes the hardest application in the shop. And so you would just see this, hey, we're going to try and sprint before we crawl. That had a lot of challenges, right? What cobots allow and what we recommend strongly is start with that crawl application. Start with the dinky, dumb one, right? You may not get your economic return on it, but what you're going to get is your psychological confidence return for your champion. They're going to go, whoa, that was pretty easy. I hated making those stupid little brackets or whatever because they were so boring. That's great. What am I going to do next? And then they start to walk and they start to run and then all of a sudden they're sprinting and you're going, whoa, I didn't know we could do that. But it's because, you got the quick wins and built the confidence early. Right? So, would recommend looking at those internally too to really drum up the right confluence of factors for success. So, in summary, just to repeat again, the hierarchy of needs for automation success, it starts with people. It's trust in your partner. It's trust in your people. It's the track record of your partner in the product that you're looking at buying. It's the customer experience that partner provides. And it's their support expertise on both the application and the break fix. From there, it's your partner's process on the robustness of their system, how they're going to support you, and how their mindset on safety. And finally, the cherry on top, the final factors to success is the product. What's the portfolio breadth? What does the software look like? Does it have a low floor and high ceiling? What does their training regimen look like? And how do they take care of you commercially? And finally, would leave you with, we're here to help, right? Our every first interaction that we have with the customer is looking at the application. What do you do to determine the answer to the question, can our systems help or not, right? And so if you're interested, if you're curious, feel free to reach out to myself or Tommy. There's some emails there that you can get in touch with us. And this is not just true of welding or cutting too. As Tommy mentioned, Universal Robots does all sorts of applications, screw driving and quality inspection, all these different things, right? So if you're like, hey, I wonder if automation could help with this, that is our favorite question to evaluate and look at. So feel free to reach out and share a little bit about what you do, and we'd be happy to take a look and see if automation may be able to help. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time this morning to join. And I hope there was some value derived from some of the recommendations and questions that we encourage you to ask your potential automation partners. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. That was great. We have a little bit of time here, so I'll go ahead and move into the Q&A part of this. So I'm going to just go ahead and kick it off here. First question, where do you recommend I start looking for potential good fit applications?
Oh, great question. Love that question. Let me actually pull up another slide from a different presentation here because I got a bulleted list. One moment. Here we go. Let's see here. Where is that? Yeah, so here are some recommendations on where we most commonly see what we call the low-hanging fruit, those crawl applications. The obvious one, right, is pallets of parts outside of weld booths. That's kind of obvious, right? That's been the typical automation application is higher volume stuff, right? What I think cobots allow for, what we hear a lot is cobots allow for high volume to be a lower amount, right? We have customers doing batches of 20s, 50s, 500s, 300s, and then of course in the thousands and 10,000s. That's where the economics get really easy. But sometimes, and depending on the part, depending on a lot of things, the batch size can be smaller. And one thing to really consider when you look at like the economics of it is I say don't look at the stopwatch time. If you hold a stopwatch to your best welder and you get a cycle time estimate on a cobot doing it, they're going to be very close. In fact, usually the welder wins. Where automation helps is if you look at an 8-hour period, a 40-hour period, a month-long period, the blue light, the arc is on for longer amounts of time, just the way it is, right? When you tell it to do something, it's going to keep doing that over and over and over quickly, right? So that's where we see even like, hey, could you really get an economic on those 500 or 500 widgets? Sometimes yes, because sometimes they take longer to produce, not necessarily just weld one of them stopwatch time, but to produce the batch of 500 may take quite a bit longer. And we're hearing from most customers it's about a 3x productivity boost as kind of the middle of the bell curve, if you will. So that one's obvious. Here's another one to look at is on the heavy welding side or just long welds. I say look for arc on time in a concentrated space, right? We got folks doing 10-foot long welds, like seal welds on a tank, and they're slow, the production time, not necessarily the stopwatch time, but because you do it, manually, you have to do it like a foot at a time and then move and reposition. Whereas with a cobot, you can literally drag it over to the start, press a button, here's my weld start, move it over here, here's my weld end, right? And so you can teach these in like 10 to 20 seconds and have it go run that weld, right? And so we see a lot of folks getting benefits even on one-off parts when there's a lot of concentrated arc on time in a space. Another one, welds that you're grinding more that you're welding than you're welding. We see that a lot where basically in that economic use case, you're actually getting more of a gain by reducing the grinding non-value add time than you are on the welding, right? So a good example of that, let me find that picture. Yeah, so like, outside corners on electrical enclosures. This is like 11 gauge carbon steel. They were TIGging that before. Now they had to grind it to get it nice and smooth. Now they just MIG it and send it straight to bead blast and paint, right? So I think it was like a 15 or 20x productivity, right? So looking for places where you're grinding more than you're welding. Seal welds, so like on tanks or something like that, or where you have a lot of rework, can be a really good fit. If you're doing TIGs, maybe some bigger TIG welds, it might be candidate for conversion to Cobot MIG, like I shared that outside corner one. And then also parts that already have manual jigs is a typically a good indicator of some level of volume as well and some level of consistency. On the plasma cutting side, we see most folks doing 3D shapes or large assembly cutting. So anytime that you're seeing like a soapstone and tape measure for laying out a template, or we have a customer that's using like cardboard templates and Sharpie and they're spending hours to lay it out for 2 minutes of cutting, you can basically automate that layout process just by repeating the program, or if you've got templates for manual cutting, and then really in most 3D shapes for the plasma cutting side. So, we got folks cutting forklift pockets and tubes, coping I-beams, coping angle iron, coping C-channel, cutting cylindrical shells, things like that, cutting, square holes, beveling. So there's some examples there.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Next question here. Can it be remotely monitored to see what an issue may be to an untrained operator?
So in a way, yes. And I'll speak just to Vectis. I think UR has a lot of other applications and providers as well that may have a different answer. But speaking specifically to Vectis's welding and cutting, Yes, you'll get, error codes on the pendant. That's fairly rare, right? Again, the break fix is fairly rare. We do have data reporting software that allows you to kind of look at, hey, how many parts did I produce this day, or this specific part program, what was its time, welding versus air moves versus pause versus errors, and so you can get a feel for that through our data reporting software. And then as far as remote monitoring, there are some options there. You can, hook it up to, the internet. You can hook it up to kind of remote monitoring software. So there are some options there. And like Tommy, you may speak to UR Connect, I think is kind of the product that UR has to remote monitoring. So there are possibilities, yes.
Yeah, if you're interested in remote monitoring the robot alone, we do, like Josh said, we have a product. Essentially, it gives your robot internet access, and then we have a whole dashboard built out to allow you to monitor whatever KPIs you're looking for, monitor uptime, parts produced, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it depends what you're looking for, but there are definitely options.
Great. Next question. How can I become a support and installation partner?
Please reach out to us. If you're specifically looking at support and installation partners for the Vectis products and welding and cutting, please reach out to connect@vectisautomation.com. If you're more interested in being a support or installation partner for Universal Robots broadly, I think probably, Tommy, the sales at Universal Robots would be my presumption, right?
Yeah, we're happy to listen to what you're looking for and help you out however you guys need.
Great there. And then I think we have time for one more question here. In your career, where and why have you seen welding automation projects fail?
Oh, that's a good question. I love it. It really is the number. All right, the three things from like a where we see it fail for things that are within the sphere of influence of the end user. It's number one, it is the champion. If a piece of equipment does not have an internal champion at the end user, it is highly likely to collect dust at some point. And I've seen it so many times. It's why we kind of take a different strategy at Vectis. A lot of integrators will kind of want to be the hero, right? Like, hey, we'll give you a turnkey solution. We'll give you everything, and we'll get it there. We'll do all the on-site. We'll live with you for weeks or months, right? And it'll work great. And it'll work great for that initial project and that initial part and that initial thing that was fixtured and programmed and supported on site, right? But that they were given a fish, right? And but they were never taught that end user was never taught how to fish. And so I've seen it so many times where some very expensive traditional robot system is collecting dust X years later because, hey, guess what? As it so happens, as it always happens, something changed in that product or the demand of that product. Hey, we don't make that as much anymore. We came out with something new and we don't really know how to reprogram this. We don't really know how to fixture it. We don't know how to use it. It's scary, right? This traditional caged robot, right? And so they never had that internal champion that felt confident in being able to repurpose it, right? And so I think that internal champion is the number one reason why automation and equipment of any type succeeds or fails, right? Number two, I think the other thing that has, I would say this prolongs the process to be successful is when you try to sprint before you crawl, right? I shared that earlier, right? So I see automation fail or just take longer to succeed because you're trying to bite off the biggest thing in the shop first versus do the easy stuff first. And then lastly, this is becoming less and less common because of better upstream parts and different design methodologies. But lastly is part consistency, right? Are you getting good, consistent joints and cross sections and fit up in the weld shop, right? I would say that's trending down, honestly, because of better equipment upstream. So, but really, if I can leave you with one to this question, sorry to be wordy here, Dylan, but the number one reason that equipment and automation succeeds or fails of any type is internal end user champion that's assigned and empowered and takes ownership of the success of that piece of equipment.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense, and we are right at time. So thank you, Josh, for answering those questions and going through that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And as Josh mentioned, please reach out to us. Be happy to help you with anything that you need, and be on the lookout for an email that will have the on-demand webinar recorded for you to view. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.